'Cause we're walking worlds and we're talking worlds with Pedro. Yeah, we're walking worlds and we're talking worlds with Pedro. Brian's here too, he's here to ask questions for you about D&D or really anything. 'Cause we're walking worlds and we're talking worlds with Pedro. On to the show! Let's get on to the show! Here we go! Faded. Roadwalkers.
Just keep hoping that I get it right.
You got it. Last time you got it right. Dude, it came in perfectly.
Oh, I did it again.
Yeah, it was great.
That's right.
Well, that was World Talkers.
You could be so good at waving at the appropriate time during the transition.
Yeah, it was pretty pro.
You know, like every show like this has just this rambling opening part where people are just talking about random stuff. They're like, "How was your day? It's so good."
Not us. We're
and
just like,
everybody's like, "Are you ever going to get started? Is that what this podcast is?" Like, yeah, that's what it is.
This is everything I dreamed of. That's why I got in the game.
That's why I started D&D, is to not play
yeah
D&D.
It's for that sweet half hour that gets taken up on I never get to hang out with you guys except for the game, so we should catch up.
It's true. And it's always good to leave that part in the podcast.
Oh yeah. Make sure
you
people
can't edit anything when you're making podcasts. Editing is completely if you edit
it's an old man's game. It's an old man's game. I actually that's why if you listen to World Walkers, it's like there's like a little funny out of context bit or whatever, and then it goes right into the theme song, and then the shortest recap I could possibly do. We're kind of quiet.
It's good. That's one of the reasons why I started off like this.
Well, that's interesting because
blow it up.
Let's see.
Callie, have you ever thought about maybe you're a little hard of hearing?
Tell us what you think of this. I've turned it up, but yeah, you go ahead and turn it up. Because it's the same settings as World Walkers Menroth, I think, and I was complimented on my sound. Well,
yeah,
that's amazing.
Obviously,
it's good times. Yeah, let us know. It's still not easy to hear. Let us know. I've messed with some settings, but and tell us if we're both hard to hear. But yeah, I keep it really short because when I listen to podcasts, I get so tired of hitting that 15-second skip until I get to the actual podcast. Because I got to hear about their news.
There's a couple podcasts that I'm okay with their banter because it's hilarious.
Oh, sure.
But I know there's one podcast that I won't drop names.
Please don't.
That the title of the podcast was something along the lines of like the process of editing or something like that, but they left in like 40 minutes of nonsense at the beginning. It's like,
yeah, I don't mind.
Editing is good.
I don't always mind the banter, but what I don't like is what they call housekeeping, where they got to talk to, here's all the shows we're doing, and here's all this stuff we're doing, and here's all the, put that stuff at the end if I want to hear it. It's cool. I'll stick around and listen to it. I think iTunes shows you now what parts people skip of your podcast through like deeper analytics, or at least it's going to soon. And I hope that everyone looks at it and goes, "Oh God, we spent 2 hours brushing up on all that stuff and getting everything prepped." So we'll see. But
we'll see how it goes. Speaking of banter and wasting time, welcome to World Talkers. I'm your host Brian Russell from the Underfold webcomic. And I'm joined by Pedro Galicia.
Yep. Hey, and I do World Walkers. I do World Walkers the podcast, World Walkers the live stream, World Walkers the lunchbox.
Oh man, that'd be great. Can we
know.
get lunchboxes?
I could.
Merch.
Yeah, as soon as we've got one thing we're working on,
merch.
and then we want to move into merch. So pretty soon. I just
Just
gotta.
let me know. I already have my fan design ready.
Yeah, but your fan design?
It's not totally complete yet, but it's only because I know that it doesn't have anywhere to go.
But yeah.
Well,
so,
anyways.
and then this is not merch, but I did want to show off one of our listeners, Josh, who plays in World Walkers Menroth. He totally sent me this.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Shroomy. So I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
I feel bad
because really great.
I had it on my table. I had it on my desk, and my daughter came. She goes, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Don't you touch it!" Because he came with one of his hands off. His battle damage through me. No. Yeah, so I'm very, very careful with him. He sits behind me. See the bookcase back there?
Yeah.
He sits on top of the dice treasure chest.
Nice.
And he protects the room.
That's awesome.
Just shroomy clouds all over. That was like the first sound effect I think I made for the podcast. That was me. Like everything else I had like recorded from something, but like that, I was like, yes.
Some good ADR.
I was very proud. So we should preface this by letting everyone know spoilers. Last week we talked a bit about the podcast and the World Walkers verse in general, but now we're going to start getting specific. So if you are not caught up, you should get caught up.
Now, and to be absolutely clear, to be caught up on the public latest episode, we will not be delving into even future spoilers that you can't get access to unless you're a patron. But you could be one whole week ahead if you were a patron. Just saying, it's there.
Patreon.com/worldwalkers gives you access to exclusive art, episodes that have not been released yet, exclusive episodes available only to supporters, and a couple other pretty cool things. So check it out. But yeah, we're not going to spoil a Patreon based episode. So only public. Yeah. But yeah, spoilers from here on out. Episode 56, Dear Kevin.
Dear Kevin.
Yeah.
Now, in this episode, they have returned to the tavern that they started in.
Yep.
At the very beginning. We meet a couple of familiar characters that we've seen before. One of them is the bartender.
Yep. Who was the original Kevin? They called him Kevin at first.
They don't remember what they can't remember that far along. Don't get me wrong. I don't blame them. It's a long time in between.
Yeah.
It's been a long, almost a year?
Let me think. December 4th is when they started, and then that episode was recorded June 2nd of the next year. So
6 months.
6 months or so, yeah.
That'll do it. You'll forget a good amount of stuff in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so I want to skip to something that I found really important, and I just want to start it off because it feels like a doozy.
Okay.
And it seemed to affect the entire team when it happened.
Yeah.
How awful was it when Wes asked about Ertleby's carpet matching the drapes?
Oh man,
yes, I've been holding on to that for a long time because I just wanted to know, because Wes seemed devastated by his own thought process.
I trimmed it up a little bit, but I left the bulk of the blow up in there. Yeah, every now and then Wes makes a joke faster than Wes is ready for. And
it's very progressive.
Yeah, that was pretty funny moment.
Okay, but seriously, okay, so let's so other people that they meet again is this bear.
Yeah.
Now we learn a little bit more about the bear this time around, including his name. And who can you tell us a little bit more about?
Yep. Constable Paddington.
Constable
Paddington. Constable Paddington. Paddington is like for those that don't know, he's a
English
childhood.
bear.
He's an English bear. Yeah, he's a bear from a storybook, a childhood storybook. I grew up on Paddington. I love Paddington, and I knew that he was going to be that for a long time. I knew his name. Like he's an actual, like he's an NPC, he's an actual character, and they don't even get a chance to talk to him in the first episode because they just pretty much, lucid dreamers can stay in the dreaming. Everyone else, if they're aware of the dream, they get knocked out. So that he got knocked out pretty fast. But he's Constable because it's this is. It's a joke. You ever see Clerks, the animated series?
You know what? I never actually saw the animated one.
It's really funny, and there's a there's a character in there. They're referring to old McDonald's characters, and one of them is like Constable Big Mac or something like that. And that word Constable stuck with me. So when I was trying to figure out who this character was going to be, I was like, he's Constable something.
Yeah.
That Constable came first and then Paddington. But yeah, and it was also around the time that I was able to No. Yeah, never mind. That's a different episode. That's an episode that's not out yet, sorry. But I'm happy that his name is Constable or Paddington because as you know, last year the creator of Paddington passed. So it was kind of nice. Oh, as you should have known. No. The world mourned, Brian. No, but the creator passed last year, so that was kind of nice to have him just tucked in there a little bit more. But
that's cool. Yep. So speaking of him disappearing really quickly in the first episode, couldn't help but notice that he kind of doesn't hear them when they mention to him several times that he's in a dream.
Yeah,
he manages to stick around.
Yep.
Is that because he's become a lucid dreamer?
No.
Is it just he just didn't hear them?
No, the reason is because essentially what he's doing in that moment, he's very focused. So it has to tie into his backstory and who he is when he's not in the dreaming. But this is kind of what he does. He assesses and tries to control situations. So he was kind of like in the zone. And so he didn't really hear it while it was going on. Like they were kind of just dropping it and stuff like that. But that is supposed to allude to the fact, and I don't think it's something that anyone picks up on in the game, but it's supposed to allude to the fact that like what he's doing right there is something that he does. Like he's professional, so you're not going to shake him out that easy.
Now we haven't found any places that have talking bears.
Nope.
On the podcast as of yet.
Not yet. That's weird.
Fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get there, I guess. Let's see. So when they get to the tavern, they're looking for Patch, the King of Dreams.
Yep.
Which is there's some fan art in the Discord.
Oh, that's so sweet. Eric's
that Eric made.
Yeah, Eric the turtle hangs out in our Discord.
Oh, is that him?
Oh,
I'm
almost
positive that that's him.
Yeah.
Anyways, I added his fan art to my
that's so
conspiracy
sweet
board.
I showed that to the World Walkers. They were flipping out. They thought that was so cool. Talking bears. I love that board's going to get more complicated.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's stuff up there, you guys. But anyways, I think a lot of it gets cropped out. But anyways, I digress. So yeah, they're waiting for Patch, and Patch is not there at the time that they get there. You as the game master, do you know where he's been? Like, do you have an idea of where he's actually at, or is it just kind of like, yeah, he's not there, he'll be there when
I think
he's there.
I don't this might be a spoiler, but I don't think it is. He's kind of mentioned, I thought, that like, it's, I don't know, I guess this is a super tiny spoiler, but it's essentially he does not want to stay in one place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's in the podcast. Yeah.
Yep. So it's just really like, is he doing anything of significance? Sometimes, but for the most part, it's just staying undercover and just shifting from dream to dream to dream to dream. Like, we've already seen that the world walkers, the longer they're on a world, the more attention they seem to draw from the nightmares. And
True,
Patch rapidly shifting as fast as he can through different places. He's just always on the run, but he's up to a few things every now and then, but it's nothing that so far has come up in the podcast.
All right, cool. That's
Yeah.
neat. Why is everybody a jerk to Tompkins? Why is he so sad? He's the most tragic character.
I think I it gets touched on a little bit more coming up, I think, but yeah, it's the gist is that, like, I mean, the World Walkers have been running with him for a while now, and they don't take him seriously. Yeah. Why would anybody else? Essentially, like, I think it's also something that, like, people tend to think that halflings are either like super cute and fun or like annoying, in
That's
the
how I felt about the Lord of the Rings characters.
In the World Walkers campaign guide that I give out for people who join the game, in the halfling section, it usually says something to the effect of, like, they're there whether you like them or not. Let's do this. Like, no, you don't get to know what's going on with them. Like, yeah, they're a little pervasive. So people either they're kind of that annoying cousin that's always around, or they're just not taken seriously because they're so cute.
Now, I will say their first interaction with him, they asked if he would build them some armor, and he made a tiny house for them. So I guess, he kind of got off on the wrong foot as well.
He didn't know how he was going to play that situation out. It's actually, I wrote out that whole scenario. They didn't have to take Tompkins. Like, the game would have changed vastly if they didn't take Tompkins, but they didn't have to. Like, he was an option. If
really?
in episode 2, I think it is 2 or 3, Tin turns around at the last second and convinces him to come. I really thought they were going to leave without him. Like, my games are open-ended, sometimes to my detriment. But
it would be very interesting to know where they would wind up if they had not have taken Tompkins. Because
it changes the whole game if they didn't take Tompkins, because
the only way they know where to go so far.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been a very different game.
Well, let's see. We have I think that's I had one. Yeah, that one's for. Well, I'll save that one for later. We did have a couple. That's all the real questions I can think of from this last episode.
Yeah.
It's a really fun one though.
Oh no.
With the entire team.
My internet connection is unstable, so if we encounter any problems, I apologize for that. I got a message saying that my internet was rough, so.
Oh.
I'm gonna go make sure that it's okay. So what were you saying?
Oh, I was just gonna say it's probably one of my favorite team building moments when they all stand up for Tompkins.
I was surprised by that, man. I never saw that coming. I was just gonna show, like, the citizens of Mercurius getting real rough and kind of beating up on Tompkins verbally, was just to show the group where Tompkins stands in the hierarchy of everything. I did not think that they were going to stand up for him. That was really cool.
It was neat.
Yeah.
And hilarious.
Yeah, it was for me personally, that was like kind of a game-changing moment, because there's moments where every now and then someone kind of connects with Tompkins, but for the most part, anything he says, anytime he drops any big news or revelations or tries to drop a little extra story on them, like, I feel like Claiborne's Nightmares, I think maybe it's the episode before that, he drops some pretty big info on him, and they're like, psh. No.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. He drops. I was really prepared like for that to be a big revelation. They're like, shut the fuck up, Tompkins. Like, so when they stood up for him, I was surprised.
I have to admit, like let's see, it's one of the interactions with Vasa, after everything that happens in Obrimos, and he's like, you told me to give this to you, and she's like, what? That's stupid. Go away. And he's like,
yeah.
And all of us at home were like, but come on, please.
Well, that's something I want to ask
for more info.
I want to ask you this question, actually, as a listener. Is there any particular moment that sticks out where you're like you wanted more information from a scene, but the World Walkers didn't chase it down?
Yeah, lots of them.
Yeah, can you think of one?
Oh yeah, one off the top of my head was when they were in Obrimos, and they went to the grave of his parents, and they're like, this is the oldest thing out here. There's no other language that's anything like this. I mean, these graves are just like, they're obviously extremely excruciatingly the oldest thing in the entire place. And they're like, how old are you, Tompkins? And he's like, I don't know. And they're like, all right, well, we should go. Like, what? Come back. Come back. I need to know more right now. I am not satisfied with this at all.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's probably been the most like, no, wait, you come back here right now.
Yeah,
time. And no, that's probably the I'm more curious about some other stuff that's just going on in the city, but they don't go back, and it's okay, like when they're in COG, because there's too much going on. That's not their fault. There's just a lot happening.
Oh, we get in the chat. We're hitting Froz Jesus. That's something I want to know about. That's interesting. Sure. Oh, maybe he's referring to the Forge Jesus. He's talking about Sanctuary, maybe.
Oh yeah. That's actually that is actually a perfect segue.
Yeah.
Into what we're gonna call religion. We're gonna have a religion discussion. Tune in, everybody. Yeah, no. Forge Jesus is a good one. We did get a listener question in from Data, just asking pretty much like, we don't really hear a whole lot about religion in many of the worlds that we've seen so far, except COG, and really not too much on the podcast, actually.
No.
But in the World Walkers COG stream, there was a ton of religion discussion, and so he was just curious. There seemed to be several different religions on COG, kind of. Well, that's fun. Yeah. Just kind of like, so what's the deal?
That's pretty badass. So what's the deal? Like, basically, well, can I tackle like essentially each world that we've seen so far?
Sure.
Okay, so the way it goes is, and I think first and foremost, I want to reveal that, or reveal sounds dramatic, but like, I want to explain that like my process for world building is I always write based on what people want to know about. So as people explore a certain section, as people explore a certain section of the world, I begin to elaborate more, and I have a lot of like notes, but I don't go whole hog until people really want to get into it, or I have a story to run with it. I did a year-long survey when I first started playing, and I don't know if I mentioned this before or not, but I took a total of every single person that had played every single character. Because I was running at the time, I think I mentioned last time, I ran like 20, 25 people at a time. A lot of people died. So there was a lot of characters to look at, right? I took that data sample, if you will, whatever you want to call it, and I started world building based on that number, and there was only ever one person who played anything remotely divine. So I just took the religion section and moved it off to the side. Like I started developing what I knew about, that back end of things. But I decided that there was only, and the place we were playing was a place called Arcadia, and it was like, it's the island that floats above Vasa's home continent. And I use those numbers to inform my world. So like, what are the people of this island like? Let's take a look. And I looked at that, and I developed the world, the island, based on like, there sure are a lot of fighters. That means, and so I developed like schools of magic, like that. So that's how I build. And I don't get a lot of players who ever dip into anything remotely divine. And especially back in the day in old school D&D, like if you played a paladin, you were kind of restricted by your alignment and stuff. It became really unfun for a lot of players, which is why I don't play alignments. You can use them, you can write them down. I just don't hold you to them.
Right.
So, having said that, religion does not take a really huge spotlight because my players never really talk about it. They almost never play divine classes or anything like that. Having said that, the way it breaks down is on the world of COG, the steam-powered world of COG, there are essentially two different churches competing. One much bigger than the other one. The Church of Raylus is centered on the belief that if you take care of yourself, you can take care of others. So they have a very, depending on which church, which sect you're following, it can be a pretty egotistical, self-centered religion. But that is the idea that like you are, now neither church is very huge on COG. They're not really big, they don't have a strong hold on the on civilization. But Raylus is very kind of self-centered. If you improve yourself, that's how you improve the world. If everyone took care of themselves, we wouldn't have to take care of each other. The other one is a lesser known one called the Church of Cagliostro, and that one believes in that one talks of, and it's hard. It's kind of secretive, so I'm trying to think of what I've actually said out loud. But essentially, like, it does inside the church, there's a series of like points, and if you look at them a certain way, they do kind of make an infinity symbol, which is what Brian was pointing to in the background there. Not a lot is known about them, and I don't think I've had any players choose that church, so I haven't had to reveal almost anything. But there's a third religion on COG, which is called the Church of the Source, and that is the religion that's followed by the Forged. The Forged believe that there is something called the Source, and it is what gives them their unique form of life. The Forged don't age. The Forged know exactly where they came from. They don't need religion to try to figure out or quell their fears or desires or curiosities. They know exactly where they came from. They were created by a mage kingdom as weapons of destruction. So they want to know, though, why they're so autonomous, why they have complete freedom, Once the kingdom fell, they gained complete sentience. And so can you guys hear that in the background? I just want to make sure. Okay, good. It's really loud on my end, so I just want to make sure. Anything. Cool. Yeah. So the Church of the Source, basically, they believe that there is something that gives complete, essentially almost divine purpose to the Forged. And some Forged follow it, some Forged don't. But the leader of that movement is a Forge named Sanctuary, who was created to be the ultimate weapon of destruction for the army. And once the war ended, he's the one that led his people on a pilgrimage across the surface of COG until they found Phallus. which is like the only kingdom that didn't participate in the war. So that's the religion of them. Obrimos is interesting because Obrimos has existed. For those that don't know, Obrimos is the world of broken time. And basically the story behind Obrimos is that Obrimos existed, and then these entities, these people known as the Chronos, eventually they kind of rose to power when they discovered that their world was completely manipulated behind the scenes and they had seized the power of time travel. They reset their world, and then they basically brought it back, but this time they erased from existence. But since they'd kind of become almost like gods of time themselves, they erased from existence the entities that had originally manipulated their world. And the next time they did it, it didn't go the way they wanted to, so they reset time again. And they continuously break the existence and the timelines of Obrimos for a long time. In one of those existences, when they had finally given people time to create their own cultures and exist and grow as people found religion, and their beliefs and their needs gave birth to deities. When the deities rose up, they found the Chronos sitting on the edge of time, manipulating everything. The deities rose up. They tried to kill the Chronos, tried to wipe them out and protect their people and protect the devout. And they sent down their divine agents to have essentially the entire world unite through faith and prayer to eradicate and give them the power to stop the Chronos once and for all. So the Chronos wiped everybody out again. And they, with the god,
is depressing.
With the gods powerless, with no faith, no belief, they hollowed them out into dead husks and tossed them into the astral plane and reset the world again. And ever since then, they have manipulated the world to make sure religion never emerges. The Chronos were eventually defeated, and so in this current version of Obrimos, we'll see if religion emerges, but we don't know. So that's fun. In Menroth, religion is kind of weird. It just has never really come to the forefront. There are people who find their own faiths. There are people who kind of preach their own gods. It's almost like it's really open. So there's a lot of different mini versions. Like somebody, essentially in mechanical terms, if you make a cleric, you're kind of allowed to make whatever deity you want and push that religion. No major religion has really ever taken hold of the known entity, the known areas of Menroth. So it's kind of an open field. But recently in World Walkers Menroth, the group was exploring. They had come across a new town that they had not come across before, and they found a small church, and it was completely sealed up, and they might be exploring it in the next episode. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but they found somebody who is the groundskeeper of the church, and that person, all he does is maintain it. No one's allowed to go in the church. It's all sealed up, but he was able to heal people up without really casting any spells. He was able to kind of make their wounds stitch up and heal up. So and that church is like the other religions, the other kind of like, they don't have churches. So this is like the first church that anyone, at least in that group, has stumbled across. So that's been pretty interesting. But
did they was there a church, obviously not being utilized as a church, but a church building in Obrimos when they went to the capital?
Ooh. I have to go back and look. I
can't remember.
I think that I think what you're talking about, like there's a building that resembles a church, but whether or not it actually functioned as a church, the group never explored it.
Yeah.
So I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. The Grand City State of Tremessa is what you're referring to, I believe, right?
Correct.
And that is a city that explores it's existed for a very long time, and it explores it's the only city on the planet that seems to be aware of the like the populace is aware of the multiple timelines, and
Okay.
they are the ones exploring the different histories and different versions of histories. Yeah,
Yes.
something like a church intermezzo. Yeah. That is actually a good way to put it. It sounds like on Menroth the trend was just never embraced, like soccer in America. That's kind of it. On Menroth, Menroth has a lot of things going on, and for whatever reason, religion just never really hooks. And part of the reason is that, especially on Menroth, it's hard for religion to hook in the same way, because religion on Menroth especially is, or at least divine magic on Menroth has always been performed very ritualistically. And since it looks just like arcane magic in terms of like, I can do this, because you can
Right.
follow the recipe, essentially, people don't tie any higher meaning to it. They're just like, this is another form of magic.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a very long answer. Sorry, but
no,
but you can dig into anything.
Exactly,
yeah,
I think that's exactly what.
I hope so. Yeah.
No, it makes it really interesting too, because we didn't know about the gods or anything of Obrimos, so that's pretty cool to find out. So let's see. Since we spent the most time on COG and there are religions there,
and real quick, I actually is one of the pain points for me is that they got off Obrimos so fast. Like, there's so much to know about Obrimos, and I can't share any of it. I mean, I can in this avenue, but yeah,
right.
But sorry,
you just go back to them and be like, so you missed this one big thing. You could have had this.
Yeah.
Well, what is one thing that you wish people knew about one of the religions in, let's say, COG, since that's the only place that has a religion?
I think you as players knew it when you were playing it, but what I was really interested in exploring was the fact that the church that you found had essentially those what were they? Were they like jewels? Were they
globes or something?
They were globes. Thank you, globes. They were globes that were put in this specific pattern, and then you had a forged cleric who came from the Church of the Source, and she wore an infinity symbol. And I think it was you were the player that figured out that was the same pattern. And so, like, what I really want to explore sometime is I really hope players explore the fact that the infinity symbol that the clerics of the Source wear matches the pattern found in that church, which was a church of Cogliostro. Yeah, and then the name Cogliostro, I'm really excited. I hope people learn about that too, because that's like an extremely important name. And if you're one of the local players around here, you know that name, but like the listeners don't know that name yet. So like they've heard it if they're watching whatchamacallit, but yeah.
Well, that leads me to an interesting question then. So let's see how to ask this the right way. How would you get that information out to the public in a way that they could hear? Because, say for instance, you're still playing a game, you are currently going to bring COG online, but they've been playing offline for a while now,
and they do not give a shit about religion on COG. They are. I mean, I'm not saying any individual player doesn't, but like that story is not about the divine secrets of COG,
right? Well, and I guess that's what I'm curious about. Like,
how would I do it?
Do you have any plans to, in a way, reveal some of that stuff?
Yeah. Well, I have hopes. Does that make? I don't know. That sounds funny.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what I have different ways I'd like to do it. One way, long term, that I would like to do it is I would love to have world books someday. I would love to be able to put all my stuff into a campaign book, like a campaign setting, and offer that to people. That would be That's like the dream. But it's hard because like to be very open with everybody. Although the people that listen to World Walkers seem to really like it, we're not an especially large podcast. Like I hang out on a podcast group, and podcasts that I've never heard of are blowing us out of the water in numbers. That's fine. I like our group. Like I like where we're at, and where I'm very happy with how the podcast is progressing. So I'm not at all upset. But I did the math a couple weeks ago, and I was like, there is mathematically, logically no way that if I did a Kickstarter, it wouldn't work. I would never get the money at this point to do it, to afford the art and all that stuff. So long term world books or campaign settings, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Short term, I've been trying to think. One reason I like this show so much is that some people work best when they're by themselves and they can just, like a Matt Colville, he seems to be able to just sit in front of the camera and just talk. That's awesome.
Right.
And I think that's really cool. I don't know that I'm especially good at it. I need prompts. I need people to ask me. And so it's something that I've toyed with, is like if I could do like releases, like basically do a video where I talk about stuff. The problem is that I would really want to edit it if it was just me. And I really want someone to talk to about that stuff and really go into like deep dive conversations. So, like I would love to do an episode like this that is just one topic and really dig into it and get that information out. The balance that I'm always trying to find is that it takes so much time to do all this stuff. That I have to figure out. Every time I want to do something, I have to weigh how much time it takes away from everything else and my family and stuff. And is it something I can afford to do without any, like, is it like this show where like it's an hour long, it's right before Critical Role, so people can hang out with us and then go check out, Critical Role. So this was a very easy decision. If I added more, if I did like these special episodes, I don't know that I could do it without putting it on Patreon. And I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So I've thought about making it a goal on Patreon. Like if I hit this number, then I do this or something. I don't know. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. Cause like I'm running
That'd be pretty cool.
3 games plus this podcast. No, 4 games. There's a Monday game coming out soon, which we haven't talked about yet. There's a Tuesday game coming out online, which I already run. The Wednesday game I run, and then World Walkers itself, plus editing the podcast, plus possibly editing like the audio from the other games to make them available in multiple ways. Because some people like watching 3-hour streams. Some people don't. They just want to be able to listen to it in their car ride.
Can we address something real quick?
Yeah.
There's a question happening in the there's a fan theory that Sanctuary is a necromancer building zombie forged out in the forest. But I will say that
that's badass.
In the COG streaming game, Sanctuary is a little bit out of the picture.
Yep.
And he remains there as far as anyone knows.
That is true. Yeah.
According to the timeline of the World Walkers, which we were playing in, because we met Tompkins in Fallis, where they had left him, and he was very disgruntled about it. Sanctuary was out of the picture, so I'm interested.
I want to adjust real quick.
What do you have to say for yourself?
No, I think like I love that theory. It's badass. You're right that like the events that happen inside World Walkers COG discredit that theory, but it's a badass theory. Like that's why I like doing this stuff. I also want to throw out there that I think Eric is absolutely right that is why people don't play religious characters or like characters that have like backstory requirement reading. I have found that like to be very, very true, that a lot of players want to jump in. They just want to make their character. They want to play. The ones that want to get in further, they'll ask for the prompts, and then I can turn over more information. But Yeah. So, but that's
cool.
a really, really good point.
Well, yeah. So, anyways, back to the ways in which to do things versus time and everything.
And if people have another idea, let me know. But
yeah, no, I think that's and I mean, people should know too that this show was spawned out of me talking to Pedro all the time and asking him random questions.
yeah.
And we were like, why don't we make this a thing? Let's just do this online.
Yeah.
So I'm not having to repeat myself 14 times. So, but yeah, so I mean, because we were talking, and I guess we were some of the first ones to even let you know that people would care about stuff like this.
Yeah.
You were unaware.
I think I mentioned it last week too. I really assumed that I would be in the background and the World Walkers would be the people that got asked all the questions. Yeah. Never assumed that people would. Yeah. So that's been really fun.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh no, they noticed. Let's see.
But
well, that's awesome. Well, I think we talked a little bit about this. How many worlds are there?
I think that it's been well, I will here's the problem. I'm finally a little bit ahead on the podcast, so I don't know if that's been revealed. But I don't think it's in
the amount of worlds.
I'll put it this way: revealed. In the episode that's up on Patreon right now, reveals in essence how many worlds you can expect to see.
Oh, so, true. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
And I'll go ahead and spoil that now. It's not a big spoiler. It's not crazy. You can expect to see 7 worlds in the podcast, but there's more that I've developed over time. So I probably have 9 or 10 different worlds that are all sitting in the background.
So there's 9 or 10 in the background and 7 in the foreground?
No, sorry. There's 9 or 10 worlds in total, 7 of which you will probably see unless the World Walkers wipe. So if the World Walkers wipe and give up on making new characters, then I guess you won't see all the worlds. But
oh no,
that's very real. Like
that's hilarious. Don't do it. Yes, because one thing that that I don't know if everybody knows this, but you are more than willing to allow them to die if they do something stupid or lose a fight.
Yeah. I try to make sure it's fair. I've mentioned that before, like in the Discord or something. I think that, or I've told the World Walkers a few times. I would play a really intense game with the World Walkers, and then I would go to bed. My wife would say, "How did the game go?" And I'm like, we ended on a cliffhanger. I don't know if they're going to live or not. And she's like, "Don't fucking kill them. We need this." And I'm like, "Baby, I can't help it." Like, she's like, "You make the game. You don't have to kill them." I'm like, "Baby, they're fighting nightmares. Like, I don't know." And it took it took 2 or 3 conversations for me to realize that she was like, "You're running the game, damn well that." I was like, "Oh, I guess technically, yeah, I don't want," but it wouldn't be any fun then. Right. People wouldn't take it seriously if they knew.
Right.
And Ed, you know what? That's another fun thing. I will answer a previous question. You asked things I wish people knew about or would ask about.
Yeah.
No one has asked what happens if one of the World Walkers or anyone in my games dies and wants to be resurrected.
Can we know? Now I want to know. I hadn't been thinking about it.
No, not yet. That's one that I'm really hoping.
I really thought we were going to experience it in COG. To be honest, we came really close to death several times.
Oh man. Yeah.
Oh, I have. So let's do a little teaser because we are getting close to the end.
Yeah.
When can we expect the Ertleby backstory episode?
I've got to check with Olivia to make sure that her con season isn't too bad, but I would like to get it done by right before summer. As I hope it's up by then.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because I mean, her and Olivia and Jane both turned in like monster backgrounds, like multiple pages. They turned into the most detailed, and then followed by Roberto and Brommelstone together because they worked on the story together, and then Megan's is the lightest. It's just a couple sentences. Yeah.
But that's okay for everybody. You don't have to come up with a really detailed backstory.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I think that we've gotten a lot out of Tin's backstory, because even though it's like it's straightforward, there's still, as long as there's meat on the bone, it doesn't matter how many paragraphs it has, Yeah, World Talkers. Someone in the chat is like, World Talkers? This if you're
Welcome.
if you just popped in, World Talkers is a weekly show, maybe weekly, but we'll see. But basically a weekly show where we talk about the World Walkers universe that is featured primarily in World Walkers the podcast, but also in the adjacent live streams. So
there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
You should know about it.
Yeah.
The question. It's funny when it's so delayed. I keep forgetting. Like, oh,
yeah.
Probably the one about dying, being resurrected.
Yep.
I imagine it's probably the terrifying one.
But yeah, so
that's awesome. Well, that is actually all the questions that I have for this week.
Nice.
Kind of figured religion would take up a nice long chunk because people are like that.
Yeah. It's a really fun thing that I want to dig into, but it's not always what everybody wants to do. So like Eric said, like it's, it takes it'd have to go into reading and learning about it like that. And I actually, when I used to run games at the shop, I had a lot more religious based characters, like divine characters, because they would come to me like, here's the god I use, this, boom, boom, boom. And they're I guess they're more used to having to come with full background stories in that kind of environment where they just jumped in. And yeah, a lot of them were younger, so like they were super enthusiastic about getting into a big campaign.
Right.
So yeah, they had full, I mean, there was one I had a year-long campaign there, and somebody had come up with a nice, cool religious story, like a story about their god and stuff, but then also how their father was the original head of the church, and like it got all intertwined with that. It was really cool. It played out really, really well.
That's neat, though.
I like the idea of dismembering people in order to make sure they can resurrect or reincarnate.
Quick, chop their arm off.
That's thorough.
Take them with us. That's awesome. Well
but yeah, if you guys have any questions in the chat, hit me up. And if you have any game-based questions too, like if you guys want to see more questions asked about running a game, things like that.
Some of those too.
Yeah. Any quick ones?
Let's see. Here's probably if two players are having an argument, how would you resolve it?
Oh, that one. Yeah, I let them go back and forth for a little bit, and then I usually interject and say, so the conversation carries on for a little bit. Obviously, it starts getting a little heated. You guys say things, hopefully nothing that you don't wish you could take back right away. But once you guys have said your piece and it's gone back and forth, how does the rest of the party respond? How do you guys resolve it? Like, I just prompt them to get it over with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what the style of the argument, though, because there are character arguments like Brummelstone and Vasa, and then there's player arguments like you're ignoring what I want to do and what we need to do in this storyline, or like when it bleeds out and becomes really hardcore, that's when I basically narrate time has passed, and then what do you guys do?
Right.
And if they try to argue again, it's like, and a lot of those points have already been made, and I think what happens is that you guys go back and forth, and once you realize that it's not going to be really resolved, and I'll turn to another player, like usually a player I can trust, and say, so what do you, when you step into the situation, you've seen this go back and forth and it's not getting resolved, where do you take it? Like, I just start forcing it because you're the narrator. You can, using the passage of time is a really good tool at any, like, just like if you're, sometimes people ask, like, how do I get through traveling segments? And you just narrate what it was like.
Right.
And you can describe some cool scenery on the way. You can even, what I like to do is like leave little plot hooks in it. Like, you travel through stonework forest, this. At one point, you hear the whispering of trees. And before you have a real chance to explore what that means, something happens. Leave little hooks and like plant little seeds so they go like, oh man, I kind of want to come back to that. And then don't let them. Move them along the story so that they start caring more about the world, and less about getting paid for the next mission. So
we did have one. I'm not sure if that's a small question or a big question though.
What?
How do you start world building?
Oh, that one the quick version of it is that you just create the section that you need. So you just make, like, if you don't, I think you can probably sit down and orchestrate this huge long plan. And if you have like a magnum opus in your head, you should, I guess, take the time. There's no wrong way to eat this Reese's, I guess. But like, the gist is that I find it really simple to just make the area you need and then build around it. And if they say like, well, what's outside of here? Improv it real quick. Make it up. Because that's how a number of my places got made. Like, I didn't really know what was on the island of Arcadia. And as they started saying, like, well, are there any other kingdoms? Of course. It's a whole other kingdom in the desert.
Don't ask about them right this second, but
no, but like,
there.
Yeah, or just being honest and saying, like, actually, there is, no one from this kingdom has really gone over there. There's not a really good back and forth relation. But yeah, there totally is. Like,
right.
Or you be honest, like, there is actually, I'm actually still developing that, to be real with you. So, if you guys want to start going over there, it's totally cool. We can end the session early and I'll start work on that. Nobody ever wants to end the session early. They'll just not go that way.
Right.
But I think being really honest and upfront with your players about stuff like that can help too. Unless you've got like the improv chops, then you don't ever let them know. But yeah, start with a little section and build outward. You don't need to create a body of government if they're just in a small fishing village and they're trying to find out why the Kuatoa have come ashore and started stealing babies. No one needs to know what the magistrate will do about that.
Right. Magistrate ain't here right now.
Yeah. Get this magistrate. We don't give a fuck.
That's awesome.
And that's true too. If you write a big long story, the first thing the players will do is break the damn thing, because it's if you have option A, B, and C, they'll pick D. But you're like, well, I'll just do A, B, C, D, and E. They're going F, like, because
as a player who has explored that option, that's exactly what people like me do.
And it's true. Well, I mean, and it's 5 against 1. And, at first it's like when you think it's like you versus the players, it's like, I can never predict my players. It's not you versus like one group. It's you versus like 4 or 5 individuals. Someone in that group has thought of something you have. You're actually working against 5 minds. So like, that's why things spiral out so fast. Sometimes it feels like, I can never predict my players. Because you're putting them in a group. There's 5 people who all have their own goals and aspirations and thought processes, and what they hear is different. That's a big one. So like, if I tell the story of 4 gargoyles that were left in place to represent the 4 daughters of a king who lost his children in a war that he never wanted to support, they've already forgotten if they were gargoyles. Somebody else doesn't remember that there's a king. Somebody else is like, what are we going to do about these fucking crazy creatures that started a war?
Right.
You can't figure out what they remember or what they heard. Like, So you can't. Yeah,
It's
those
like, hang on a second, everybody. What? What are you talking about?
happens a lot, and like so therefore, like that you just have 4 different people who have each take like somebody really likes the idea of like if one of the players in your group is a parent, they're gonna latch on to a man who lost his daughters. But somebody else who's into the mythology of your world, they're like, ooh, I don't know about this war. They care about that part. Like, since they all care and diverge immediately as soon as you start talking, yeah, it's not a fair fight.
Right.
So, yeah. That's how I cope with when things go off the rails. Like, I love it when they go off the rails now because I accept that I can predict 1, 2, maybe 3. 5 minds is unfair.
That's fair.
Yeah. But I
All
know
right.
people want to go get to Critical Role, so
Can't
probably
stop 'em.
can't stop, won't stop. But
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for another episode of World Talkers. I'm Brian, and this is Pedro again,
Yep.
creator and GM of all of the different World Walker games. More coming soon.
yes, if you listen to episode 56 and you like what you heard, I highly recommend considering becoming a patron because things
Don't
pick
consider
up.
it. Just do it blindly. Just dump your money on it. It's well worth it.
If the $3 tier gets you the next episode, I've been waiting a long time to reveal some of that stuff, so I was super excited.
Just put it this way, it's very hard to run this show having listened to the next episode because all I want to do is talk about the next episode. So,
but if you don't like it, cancel your pledge. I'm not gonna be mad. Like, I think you should try stuff out.
but there's also exclusive episodes that you are missing out on. just
Time travel
legitimately.
episodes about love. But yeah, so thanks for joining us. If you have questions, send them on Twitter. You can send them to @WorldWalkersPod or @TheUnderfold. You can email Brian at
theunderfold.com.
Yep. And you can email me at pedro@worldwalkerspodcast.com. So hit us up, let us know, and let us know what you want to see. Like what you want to see in the shows. If you guys are interested in those like kind of lore or extra long story breakdowns, because like people have asked me gaming tips and stuff like that, and they've asked me about lore, and I'm totally happy to put those on something like Patreon or something if people want them. I just don't know if anyone wants them. So let me know.
Sounds good.
All right.
You guys have a great night.
All right. See you later.
Keep walking them worlds.
Woo woo. Oh,
We'll have to
nice.
come up with a better tag.
Too late.